Okay, hopefully the last video for today, not for the week probably, but for today. This is instructions, maybe a little how-to on research essay assignment 6. Right, the main portion, really it's not the main. 50% of REA6 is your outline of your paper. Before you ask, yes, your outline can change, of course. You'll notice that I am only expecting you to have analyzed 3 of your sources by this week, so with more sources will come more ideas, and you may have to scrap your outline entirely. Then, why are we doing an outline? Primarily because I want to see you demonstrating in a systematic way that you have totally isolated your claim down to a one-sentence shot, and that you are recognizing what kind of arguments you're going to be making for your claim and how you're going to make those arguments persuasive, which, when we'll talk about at the end of this video, deals with warrant, which is something that you're going to be explicitly describing with your third source analysis. So, what is an outline? You've probably all done outlines before. So if you want to fast forward in the next couple minutes because you feel like your outlines are set, go right ahead. I've just come up with, my research essay is going to be, my claim is that Michael Jordan is a better basketball player than LeBron James. That right there is the main claim of my argument. That should be the number one thing in my outline, my intro paragraph or whatever. I'm saying this, I'm making this. You've heard of thesis statements. The end of your first paragraph, in this essay, I will argue that Michael Jordan is a better basketball player than LeBron James for the following reasons. Argument 1. Michael Jordan has more NBA championships. Number 2, Michael Jordan has a more enduring influence on the game. Argument 3, I don't have an argument 3 because I'm just making this up as I go along. I'm at best a kind of halfway basketball fan, so I don't even really know what I'm talking about. But I've heard that this is a big debate, so that's what I'm using. So that would be like the basic outline of your essays in that last sentence, that thesis sentence where you hit your major arguments. At the end of the day, I don't require that you actually have that sentence. If your essay, and you'll notice that I think it's week 8, you're required to turn in a rough draft. If I'm seeing in your rough draft that your essay is just not coherent, it's not crisp, it's not precise, it's not really clear where you're going, then I will just say, here's what you need, a thesis sentence. It looks like this. In fact, just copy and paste from my comment and put it into your essay, and it'll say something like, this essay argues that Michael Jordan is a better basketball player than LeBron James for the following 3 reasons. Whatever. And that is the simplest, most workmanlike, get it done kind of way that you can go about things. But it will get things done. And I hope I've emphasized before in one of my videos, I am way more interested in accuracy and depth of content than I am in having wonderful prose and beautiful turns of phrase. If you have those things, that's great. But ultimately, the difference between a low-level essay and a good to high-level essay, the difference between a C or lower and a B or higher is content and clarity. Punch it out up front. So in your outline, have a thesis statement at the end of you could even just say first paragraph and then just have your thesis colon da 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 da. Then you want to have argument 1. In mine, my first argument is that Michael Jordan is a better basketball player than LeBron James because he has more NBA championships, and it's not even close. Now, that's great, and that's awesome, but the real question then is, what am I going to say about that? That's a nice sentence. NBA championships are great. But I need to come up with some reasons why I think that, is persuasive, why that matters. So I've thought, well, maybe, for example, Jordan has a whole bunch of championships. But not only that, but his teammates were weaker than LeBron's teammates, and he still had more championships, indicating that he himself is a greater player. Scottie Pippen was no Dwayne Wade, right, or Chris Bosh. Who else was in? Bill Paxton? Is that the guy's name? Bill Paxton was nowhere near as good as Ray Allen. right? So Jordan had weaker teammates, and yet he triumphed. Second, really, Jordan's postseason stats over the course of his career are just better than LeBron's. He has a higher shooting percentage. He has a higher point percentage. He has a higher efficiency, or whatever people say. These are all things that are going to support this view that because Michael Jordan has more NBA championships than LeBron James, he's overall a greater player of the game. So each one of those things makes the argument stronger, and the argument bolsters the main claim. Next, my argument, I could say argument number 2. Michael Jordan is a better basketball player than LeBron James because he has a more profound influence on the way the game is played, right? And I could say, well, before Michael Jordan came around, zone defenses were highly prized. And after Michael Jordan played the game, the one-on-one and help defense became the standard in the NBA because it was the only way to stop someone of such supreme skill. Or I could say the moves that you see out of today's best guards and point guards, Chris Paul and Kobe Bryant, you can actually see them begin with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan invented the moves that are standard for today in a way that you don't see with LeBron James. So those would be like some reasons why argument 2 that Michael Jordan is a better player than LeBron James because he had a more profound impact on the way the game is played. So you can see I'm bolstering the argument, right? And then the argument bolsters the overall claim, right? So that's how your essay, that's how your outline should look, and that's ultimately how a good essay runs. This is of course really simplified, but we're using a Mickey Mouse example because that helps. Now, the second part of REA6 is a third source analysis. Now, the first 2 parts of your third source analysis are the same thing that you've been doing. Identify major claim, identify arguments. Standard stuff. The last thing is new, and it kind of ties into what we just talked about, and that is you're asked to identify the warrant for at least one argument, I think. You're supposed to locate one of the arguments for the main claim and then demonstrate the warrant. Okay? Warrant's a little bit tricky. Warrant is very rarely is it explicitly stated, but the warrant is kind of what gives an argument its oomph. It's why the argument is persuasive, right? And it's usually something that the author believes or the text believes that you and the essay agree on, something that you share, right? So, for example, in mine, when I say Michael Jordan is a better basketball player than LeBron James, and I say one of my reasons for this is that Jordan had more championships. And one of the reasons that Jordan's championships are so meaningful is because he had such weak teammates, right? Now, the warrant for that is not that it's just true that weak teammates demonstrate that Jordan is a better player. It's the underlying assumption that you and I both share, which is that in a team game, only a player of extraordinary talent can excel when he has weak teammates. Okay? That's the warrant. It's the logic that makes that reasoning persuasive. Okay? Another one. Okay, so on my second argument, I say Jordan had a more profound influence on the game. And one of my things I said, look, before Jordan, it was mostly zone defenses. Zone defenses were very popular. And after Jordan, one-on-one defense became league standard with help. Okay? Why is that persuasive? I don't even know if that's true, by the way, and you can go ahead and tweet me and tell me that I'm wrong, or email me, or even do a video on why I'm wrong, why LeBron James is so great. I think that'd be great. Nevertheless, let's just assume that's true. The warrant for that argument, the reason that argument has oomph, it's persuasive, is because we intuitively think that if one individual can change the entire way a game is played, that individual, what that individual is doing must be extraordinary, right? We don't need to say that. I don't need to explain that. I don't need to say to you, because this happened, we know that Jordan is extraordinary, because only an extraordinary individual could have. You're identifying warrant. It can be very difficult. Do your best. The reason I'm having you identify warrant is because when you're ultimately writing your paper, when you're making arguments, you need to think about whether or not the people that are reading your paper are going to find your arguments persuasive. I mess, the Bible says this, but the Bible also says this, you shall not suffer a witch to live. Right? You have to kill all the witches, essentially. That's in Leviticus 18, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. You can look it up. Let's see. The Bible says you should not boil a baby goat in its mother's milk. That's also in Leviticus. Those are two commands that I think you and I are going to look at and be like, yeah, I don't think that really matters anymore. I actually know some Wiccans. You've heard of Wiccanism, like modern witchcraft. And I have no desire to kill them. And yet by doing so, I'm in direct violation, it seems, of the Bible. Now, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because if we just assume that because the Bible, it's that bumper sticker, right? The Bible says it, I believe it, that settles it. I want to push back on that and say, is that always true? Do we actually abide by that? And if not, why not? And that opens up a big can of worms. You can't just throw out verses and expect them to stick, because there are a lot of verses that you could throw out. People are like, and then you have to think about why it is that warrant has or does not have oomph, and what kind of people are going to be reading your argument and being like, I'm just not seeing why I should go down that road with you. I don't get it. You think the authors are ever going to say, the reason you should believe this is because we use social science, we interviewed people, and that's compelling. That ought to be compelling to you. No one's going to say that. They're just going to assume from the outset that their reader, like them, finds the scientific method compelling. End of story. So when you're looking for warrant, that's what you're looking for. It's the logic underneath the argument, not the argument itself. All right, what we talk about in this lecture, we talked about your outline, what it looks like. I highly encourage you, if you're more of an artsy type person, to use Prezi, Prezi.com. They're really cool. I enjoy them more grading, so I'm not saying I'm going to bump your grade, but it will be more entertaining for me if I get to click through a presentation that you make on your outline. But most importantly, your outline needs to have a thesis, and it needs to have your argument, and if you can, you need to show why it is that your arguments are compelling, or your sub-arguments that make your arguments stronger. The second thing you need, and the second thing we talked about, is your analysis of your third source. You got to get major claim, arguments, and at least one warrant. What is it that makes these arguments, or what is it that the author assumes is going to make these arguments compelling? Knowing that will ultimately, when you're writing your research project, help you identify ways in which you might be critiqued, and might help you to address those issues before they come up from the person doing the critiquing, and that will lead to ultimately a much better grade. One thing I can tell you is that even if you're not locating these things up front, once you've turned in your rough draft, I will probably point them out to you, because I'm going to be looking through and I'm going to be saying, well, and I'm gonna be critical in that way, and I'm going to push you to make your research as compelling and as persuasive and as deeply thought out as possible. All right, see ya.